Smoak. Will Vandervort covers Clemson, senior writer for Clemson Insider, and joins Paul, Craig, and David Smoak here on 365 Sports. And Will, we just read information, first thanks for your time, from Pat Forty, that apparently the ACC did have a vote on Cal Stanford and that they're one vote short. Is that something you're hearing as well, and does that surprise you or not?
No, it doesn't surprise me that they're one vote short, because I know there were several teams that were – they got to have 12 votes, so people understand. They got 12 of the 15 votes have to be to pass to add Cal and Stanford. And I know there's 3 teams that are a hard no. So it sounds like I know at one point it was 4 teams, so they must have persuaded one of those teams to jump on or so, or 2 of them. But I'll be interested to know who the one left no is. I know at one point Clemson was a hard no, so a little surprised if it's Clemson that turns. But it'll be interesting to see, how that comes out. But, I just don't really see, again, why it's not going to make a difference for the Atlantic Coast Conference if those 2 teams join the conference. It's not going to do anything from a revenue standpoint. It may add another $6 million a year, but that's still nowhere near what the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be making. And Clemson and Florida State are not going to be happy. So if they're one vote short of 12, that means, I definitely know Clemson and Florida State are the no's.
Well, we have in the report, 40 mentions both North Carolina and NC State.
Are the no's?
That's what he's reporting.
That's no way. No, that's no way that's accurate. There's just no way. There's no way Florida State and Clemson are saying yes.
No.
There's
all 4 of them are no's.
No.
Clemson, FSU,
all 4 of them are no's.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, you were asking about who may have been the other no's, and I'm saying that on top of FSU, Clemson, it was NC State and North Carolina.
Gotcha. I misunderstood you. My apologies. Yeah, because I knew Clemson and Florida State were solid no's earlier this week, and North Carolina I knew was a solid no. And then there were 3 teams that were sitting on the bubble, and NC State was one of those 3 teams, as was Virginia Tech and Virginia. So no surprise then that North Carolina's done. I'm a little surprised NC State said no, because Bo Corrigan is his dad was Boo Corrigan, the longtime commissioner of the ACC. I'm sure he wants to see the ACC survive and thrive as much as he can. A little surprised to see him say no. But I get it, because it just doesn't do anything for the conference, those 2 teams coming to the ACC.
So, Will, we know what Florida State's view on the long-term, ACC. They don't really care about the long-term health of that conference. They want out. How does Clemson feel about the ACC long-term?
Well, Clemson's not happy. I mean, there's a reason why they voted no. Clemson's been quiet, which is their norm. They're not as hot-headed as Florida State is when it comes to things. They kind of stay quiet and go about their business. But they've told the ACC. The ACC knows that Clemson isn't happy. Graham Neff, I know he's been the athletic director for Clemson, has been at the forefront trying to get more money to go. Really, he's basically came out and said it, and talking to the media last year that, Clemson's carrying the conference, and it's not right that Clemson's carrying the conference, and there's other schools in the conference that aren't doing anything to improve their athletic departments, and yet they're getting the same money Clemson's getting. And so Clemson's made it known they want revenue sharing, to kind of go towards those that deserve it more. They should get more money, I should say, than the teams that aren't doing anything. And that's part of the problem, and why Florida State and Clemson are disgruntled. They came in the spring, and they're like, everybody's happy. They're going to do this new revenue sharing plan that's going to help teams like Clemson, Florida State get a little bit more money. But when it all came out, it was going to be no more than like $3 or $4 or $5 million. And Clemson and Florida State, okay, that's not going to do anything. That's not going to move the needle and help us compete at a high level. And so Clemson has been very adamant with inside the conference that they're not happy. And I can tell you guys right now that Clemson is ready to go if an invitation happens. like Florida State, so people understand Clemson and Florida State are ready to leave. They can't. The reason they haven't left is because they haven't got an invitation to leave. But if an invitation comes, I can tell you they're both gone. And the grant of rights, it doesn't. I mean, they've already, both schools have their plan on those grant of rights. Grant of rights is not holding them there. What's holding them there is just the lack of invitation.
Will, what do you make, or think, I should say, not what do you make, but what do you think, and what do you think Clemson thinks of the Notre Dame stance of, wanting a push for the Pac schools, but, obviously, as most everybody points out, yeah, you're an ACC member, but you're not a member all the way. Just how is that sort of viewed by a school like Clemson, that they have a say, but they're not willing to go all in themselves?
Yeah, I can't speak for the administration because I haven't talked to them yet on record about how they feel, so I can't really speak for them and say this is what Clemson, but I'll tell you what I've heard. And I know, just talking to just Clemson people, that they really don't like the fact that Notre Dame is trying to persuade a football vote when they're not on the football, they're not in the conference as a football team. And so I can tell you, just talking to some Clemson people, they're not happy about it. But as far as the athletic department, or I can't speak on behalf of them because that's not right for me to say how they feel one way or the other. But I can tell you what Clemson people feel, and they're not happy that Notre Dame is out there doing that.
Why would the other teams in the conference want Notre Dame to have a say in football anyway if Notre Dame's the one that could solve this problem? I mean, honestly, if they came in the league, that would be the one thing you would think would make ESPN decide to open up the television contract a little bit. I mean, that, to me, I don't know.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you're Notre Dame and you're like, oh, poor Stanford, poor, Cal, well, you can do something about that, Notre Dame. If you want Cal and them to really join the ACC, then how about you pony up and join the ACC too as a full-time member? And then that way those two teams can come in there and everybody's happy, and, they can sing Kumbaya, and they get to play Stanford every year and everybody's happy, right? I mean, you're right. Notre Dame they just like to have their cake and eat it too. And it's really kind of aggravating because the ACC a couple of years ago, guys, had an opportunity to really stick it to Notre Dame and say, hey, look, this is when COVID hit, and Notre Dame could not play. If it wasn't for the Atlantic Coast Conference that year, Notre Dame would not have been able to play again because the Big Ten wasn't allowing it, the SEC wasn't allowing it, neither was the Big 12, neither was the Pac-12. Notre Dame was out, and the only relationship they had was with the ACC, and the ACC says, yeah, come on in, you can play, we'll figure a way to get you a schedule. You can play a conference schedule this year, and they did. And they got in the college football playoff because of it, without even having to win the conference. They got in. So it's like the benefits proved, and the ACC was hoping that Notre Dame would see this and want to join the conference. But again, Notre Dame was Notre Dame. They used the ACC and got what they wanted, and then they said bye after they got what they wanted. They're basically like that girlfriend that we all have that puts you in the friend zone, and you keep hanging on thinking she's going to one day give in and you're going to get to go out and everything's happy. Well, that's what the ACC thought was happening in 2020. And then as soon as COVID went away, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm done with you. I got what I needed out of this relationship. I'm moving on. And that's what they did. And the ACC could have told them no then, and that really would have put pressure on Notre Dame to say they got to join a conference. And so the ACC dropped the ball in 2020. They had their opportunity then, and they let it go by.
Yep, and we've seen what's happened with even a couple of conferences when they let something go by and they look up and, we're in trouble. We got to go find a way to salvage ourselves. Dabo's not talking much about it. I would think he's so focused on football. If somebody brings up realignment, does he just kind of like deflect it?
He did. Somebody asked him the other day about it, and he just kind of like, yeah, I'm not really worried about that or thinking about that. Whatever they decide, it is what it is. We'll play who we got to play kind of thing is what he said. And so, yeah, he's been deflecting it. He's focused on getting this team ready for the college football playoff. Their goal is to make they want to, obviously, the players are talking about winning a national championship and all as they should be. But Dabo who normally does not put out there that making the college football playoff is a goal or anything. He likes to say their last goal is to always win their last game, whether that be in a bowl game or a national championship game or whatever. And so, but he's made it clear he would love to be in the final four college football playoff, and just on the last year of it, because if Clemson is to make it, it would give Clemson 7 appearances in the 10 years that the college football playoff existed, which is pretty good. You're hitting 70%. You're doing pretty good, right? If you're hitting 700. So he kind of that's kind of their goal, or what he wants to do, and so he's kind of getting his team focused on making a run and getting themselves into the college football playoff.
Do you think that the Garrett Riley addition and the maturation of that defensive line, which looks like it might be coming around to the glory days of Christian Wilkins and those guys, that will be the difference in what was kind of an off-balance 2 years for them to now?
Yeah, I think defensively, Clemson's in prime position, as you mentioned. I think their defensive line is one of the best in the country. They got 2 of the best linebackers in the country, and Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, and their secondary is going to be much improved this year and got a lot of depth in the secondary, something they haven't really had under Dabo Swinney in years past, and this might be his best secondary. So when you look at that defense, you say, okay, well, that's a top 10, top 5 defense nationally. What is the offense? And when Clemson won those national championships, they had a top 5 offense, top 5 scoring offense, top 5 total offense. And so that was they complemented each other well. And so they feel like with the addition of Garrett Riley and what they already have in place at Clemson, they got Cade Klubnik, who Garrett Riley recruited to TCU and SMU. He wanted him to come with him there. And so they feel like they got the quarterback that fits that system. They got very athletic offensive linemen that kind of fit the system. And they think they got the wide receivers, at least on their frontline wide receivers, that could really do some damage along with a very, very gifted and talented tight end, Jake Brittingstool. So they feel like they can really move the football. The Clemson defense is coming in after practice, and they're talking about what the offense is doing to them. And this is one of the best defenses in the country, as we just said, and they're having issues with them. So this might be what Dabo needed, and he made a big move last year that he went out and got Garrett Riley, and it stunned everybody because nobody saw that happening, including the people like me who cover Clemson. It caught us all by off guard. So Dabo was being very proactive in knowing that he needed to take another step and change things up a little bit on his offense if he wanted to get Clemson back into the college football playoff.
Will, we appreciate your time. We'll come back to you when the season begins, probably more than you want. Will Vandervort, the Clemson Insider, with us, and really good stuff, both in realignment phase and also when it comes to their football team, which will be a top 5 or 10